Hello, good morning. Really glad you guys have had your coffee or perked up for the first talk here. So, as John said, I'm Anu, the paid performance manager with Zoopla, and I'm going to be talking about some of the great Excel formulas that have really helped me with my career in paid search over the past 10 years. So I'm going to start off with just, sharing a little bit about me, because not all Excel geeks are little geeks and do that alone. So I love singing. I'm part of an amazing choir, and we've been doing that for about 8 years now. I'm also a bit of a motorhead. So I've got a nice little Vespa, and I'm hoping to upgrade to a big motorbike very soon. Also love traveling, and I'm actually quite excited to be heading off to Croatia over the weekend. So let's get into it. So really, this was me. This is no lie. When I was a kid, I was that little girl who used to play my dad's laptop while everybody else was outside playing and creating tables and graphs. And this was not just an interview spiel. This is literally, I was that kind of girl who loved playing with laptops. That's me. So really, what can a PPC Pro use Excel for? A large majority of things. So you can start with campaign creation. You can use it for reporting, for budget modeling, so that you know what parts of your accounts you want to spend it on, depending on your return you're getting from it, for competitor tracking, and for ad scheduling. But the two main bits I'm going to focus on because of our timing, because I could talk about Excel all day, but I'm just going to focus on two areas, and that will start off with campaign creation and reporting. So what are the questions to ask when you're thinking about your campaign creation for Excel? What are your high intent keywords? Because with paid search, we're always trying to get that search term that will lead to your landing page, that will lead to immediate return, whether it's a conversion or some revenue. And how many are there? So that's how big you want your account to be, depending on what your budget is. Also, how can you make your ad copy as relevant as possible? As we know, in terms of quality score, you need to make sure that your keyword matches your ad copy, which matches your landing page. And with Excel, I'm going to show you how you can make sure that actually works. And actually, what's the overall structure is going to be. So we're talking match type and how your site is actually structured. So starting off with your keywords. A formula that I love using is Concatenate, because for Zoopla, the different aspects that makes a very high intent keyword for us is your number of bedrooms, the type of property it is, whether it's to rent or for sale, and what location we're going for, whether it's London or Manchester or Brighton, etc. And if you do your Concatenate properly, you can actually have, for these different four aspects of it, for those different types of all the different aspects, you can get 96 different possibilities. So if you can do a concatenate of, let's say, even just the first line, so 1 bed, flat, to rent in London, and with the A1 that I've put at the front and at the end of it, that allows you to bring in your match type in it. So if you put the quotation marks in A1, you automatically set up your phrase match for all of these keywords. Now, I say this actually works for keywords and match typing, but this one is mainly for, I'd say, exact match and phrase. When you're actually looking at your match type of BMM, what you actually want to do is use a formula like substitute, because we know for BMM, we need the plus sign in front of each word. And to do that easily with Excel, all you have to do is first insert the first plus sign that has to come before the keyword, and then you do your substitute for space of space to space plus, just to make sure there is a space in between each of the words. So then 1 bed hotel to rent in London becomes the BMM version of 1 bed a hotel to rent in London. So now we'll go on to the second part of our campaign creation for our ad copy. Now what we're going to do is just use our keywords to create our ad copy, because we want that high relevancy by making sure our keywords are in our ad copy. And how do we do that? We can just take the keyword by using the proper formula. You can just make sure the first letter of each word is a capital, because I found in my experience that's actually a way of creating an ad copy that is of high relevance or that increases your click-through rate. So 1 bedroom hotel to rent in London, which was our keyword, as we saw in the previous slides, has now automatically been the headline in the nice format that you want it to be. Now, what you can then do with Concatenate, because with the description line, you have more characters to play with. You can add more different features, more USPs, more call to actions in there. But we can still use the keyword by just using the Concatenate, putting find at the beginning, using the ampersand sign, and then referring to our keyword, and then putting your extra USPs at the end of that. I'd also remind us at this stage also to use trim, because obviously with our character limit, you don't want to be wasting any of your characters on extra spaces that you don't need in your keyword, in your ad copy even. Also, another way to actually make sure that you're not wasting any space, use the LEN formula that allows you to then see how many characters that you have for each line, knowing whether you can add more inside in your description or whether you actually need to pull back on how many characters that you've used. Now I'm going to go to another favorite part for me, especially for Zoopla. When I first started with them, one thing I was quite disappointed with my agency then was that they didn't actually have an Excel report for me of my daily performance, weekly performance, and what have you. And after talking to them for a while, I was like, you know what, I'm just going to create one. So with reporting, what do you actually have to ask yourself? Who is it for? How often does it need to be done? Because for internally, your internal digital team, you might want to see daily, might want to see weekly. Chief marketing officer might only want to see monthly or quarterly, and then so you have to take into consideration what you're actually going to show depending on who your audience is. And then how large is the account, because obviously depending on how large it is, will then affect how large your file is going to be. So I'm going to show the case study of the report that I created personally for Zoopla, literally all these tabs are showing my daily, weekly, monthly, splitting it out by different lead types, having a tab for my raw data, pulling data from DoubleClick, pulling data from Google Analytics, and from AdWords. Now, what's in the report? I'd say everything, all my different formulas, the trims, the proper, the VLOOKUPs, IndexMatch in there. So putting something like this can be time-consuming in the beginning, but then once you set the template up right, doing it on a regular basis, I find to be very easy, and it's quite an enjoyable process for me. Now, at this stage, I'm going to throw an Easter egg in there for you guys. There's this new tool, well, not new tool, it's actually been there for a while, a tool called SEO Tools Extension. Now, Excel does have loads of formulas you can use, but then there's some things that it's quite limiting to do, and SEO Tools just gives you extra formulas to manipulate your data in much better and enjoyable ways. Yes, I did say enjoyable ways. So I'll start off with using text. So yeah, this is an easy one for your dates. If you have your data and you want to show it in a different format. So I like to see my months as, January 2017 to be JAN 17, and that you can do that by just using the text on the date for that one. For some ifs, this is a good way of summing up your data, whether it's your impressions, your clicks, or your costs, according to different groupings. So let's say you have your campaign reports of several campaigns over several days, but you just want to see it on a daily basis or a weekly basis, on your monthly basis. So the first column that you pull it from, that you say what it wants to sum. So you want to sum up your costs. So that's the first aspect. So that's the DS. Exclamation mark and KK column, and you say that that's your cost, and then you want to say that you want to refer to the date. So the date is in the A36 cell, and you want it to make sure it sums it all up from the BB column in DS. And this is how you put it in there to make sure it actually sums up your whatever you want to sum it up according to what you actually put in a particular cell that you're looking at. Now, a search, another formula I like using is the search and the is number formula. And this one was a little bit of a conundrum for me at the beginning because there's quite a bit of nesting. But it's a very good way of categorizing something that's in a cell if you don't want to do VLOOKUP, and if there's actually quite a small list of variations that it could be. So what the formula is doing is, first of all, searching for what you have in that bracket, so the Zoopla brand account. And you're saying that with the search formula, what it does is that if it finds what you've put in the text, it throws a number. And that's where the is number then comes in. So if the is number formula says that a number has been pulled through from the search formula, it means that your text wasn't there and then it'll give it output whatever you have actually asked it to output. So I'm saying in this formula, in that first bit, if you see the Zoopla brand account, put in the text exclude. And so if it sees the number, it'll actually write out the word exclude. And because there was a limited amount of categorizations I needed for this, I needed just literally for exclude and residential, it was easy to put this in this formula instead of doing any other kind of formula. Now, this is one of the SEO tools, formulas that I actually used. And what I actually want to point out for this formula especially is the fact that I actually use a bit of Concatenate in there. Because, so what's starting off, what this formula actually does is that it says if you find office or flats or cafe in the cell that I'm referring to, just write it out. Just write that word out for me, even if there's other words in that cell. But if you find it there, this is how I actually want to categorize it. And what you actually find with formulas is that there's a limited amount of arguments you can put in. So I've got several arguments where there's office, flats, cafe, but at the point of restaurant, I can't add any more in that formula. But what I can do if I want to have more options is just put in the concatenate symbol, and that allows me to ask it to search for more options in there. And that's how you can make sure that if you've got a limited amount of arguments, you can just keep going if you need more. Now, this is an interesting one for me to explain, because I loved using VLOOKUP for a long while, but then with IndexMatch, I realized that it actually opens up the options in terms of when you've got like a table or a array table and you're trying to pull up the second column based on the first column. And now what IndexMatch does here is that, starting off with the match, what it's doing is that it's saying, if my format for the text I'm looking at, let's say I've got 2 columns, and for example, the data is London and the cost is 100. And I wanted to pull up 100 for where I say London is. So the cost for all of my London data. So I'll tell it that, so let's say London is in my Q2 cell, and then I'm saying, tell me where London's data is in my array of columns. So it'll then pull up the number, row number 4. So it gives you the number. And what the index formula needs is a number, and then I'm saying, pull up the data from row number 4 of any other column in that array of data. So I'm saying, now that you know that London's data is in row 4, pull up the cost, or if you can just say pull up the impressions or pull up the clicks for row number 4. And that's actually how IndexMatch works. And by putting if error there, if you don't actually find the data, you can then give it an option of what text to put in. And that's why there's a no location specified text in there, because I don't want NA to be put into any of the cells. Now, some of my extra tips that I'm going to add for this is that because our account was quite large and there was quite loads of different aspects to it, so the whole number of beds, property types, and locations, that I needed to find a way to make sure I lean up my file. One thing that people don't really tell you is that formulas take up a lot of space. Once you start having loads of formulas, it's going to take a long while for your data, for your file to load up, for you to save it, for you to do anything else while it's calculating. So what I do is I save all my formulas on one line in one tab, and then actually manipulate my data, download it from either my DoubleClick, my AdWords, and then copy down the formula, make sure I'm seeing all the right data, and then just copy and paste special values so that literally I only have my values in all my raw data tab. So that makes it save a lot of time when it's loading and when I'm actually trying to use it to analyze data. Another Easter egg that I'm actually going to point out, which I find it quite funny because in a way, this Easter egg means that you don't have to remember a lot of the formulas I've actually talked about, because ASAP Utilities is a really good tool that, unfortunately, at the moment, is only available for PCs. That when you download it, allows you to implement a lot of these formulas without actually remembering what the format is. So, for example, what I like using this for is changing my dates into a nice format. So when I download data from Google Analytics, I really don't like the way it shows the date. It shows it as the year, the month, then the day, no characters in between that. And I like to see it as day, month, year with a / in between all those different aspects. So what I can do here is literally then go to select the whole range of cells that I want to change, select option of convert data the date values and recognize date values. Tell it what it's looking at in terms of those cells. I'll tell it that, okay, the first 4 characters it's looking at is the years, the second set is the month, and the last 2 is the day. And then I can manipulate in whatever way I want to put it in. I can then say that I want it to be shown as day, month, year, and put in / in between all those different aspects. Or if you're from America, have it as month, day, and year. And that's a really good, easy way. And when you do OK, it just automatically changes all your dates into how you actually want it seen. So yeah, that's asabulties is very good for implementing the text, implementing the proper formula, removing characters, or even adding characters to a whole bunch of data, which I find also helps a lot with like landing page tracking URLs when you want to do that in bunch, because people find that very manual and painstaking. So what are the key takeaways? I'd say so formulas can be used for several stages, and even a lot more than what I've actually mentioned here. Don't be afraid of nesting. It might look quite scary, but once you press that enter key, it's amazing all the kind of different aspects of the data you'll actually split your data into. And extensions can be your best friends, and I've actually found it very useful, especially with ASAP utilities. Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Anu. Whose head hurts? I mean, PPC Gold Dust there. I mean, I've got a couple of questions on the thing. They're going to be the obvious questions.
Okay.
Question 1, do you have an Excel template for all of these formulas that you'll be able to share with us?
I keep getting asked for that. Yes, I do. Yes.
Result 1, there we go.
I'll be sending that out. No
cool, will you tweet that out or send that out? Or
yes, I'll tweet it out.
Yeah, follow Anu on Twitter.
Follow me on Twitter, you'll find it.
Do you have any favorite AdWords scripts for automating day-to-day tasks?
AdWords scripts, that's interesting. I used to talk about AdWords scripts a lot. My favorite one, I would say, is for monitoring quality score. The guys at Brain Labs, who are like some really good friends of mine, created this amazing one. That's the thing with scripts. You do not have to be a tech guru about it. There are actually several of them out there that you can just copy and paste into your AdWords. And quality score one was something that just if you set a schedule to it, it automatically shows your quality score and actually does graphs, shows when things have dropped from when you started, from when you are now. So yes, the quality score tracker was like a very, very
big
good one
player,
for
that
me.
one, definitely. Because you don't obviously get good visibility on that data within the AdWords platform anyway. So actually
exactly,
writing a script for it, you just
time.
don't see it over time. So
Exactly.
actually, that's a great one, to be honest with you. The best one or the last one?
Okay.
How did you learn all these scripts? Was there a course, or is it just hours that you put in, or?
Honestly, I will say it is hours that I've put in. I have gone on a few, like at the beginning, like when I was like trying to start into it, that I always went in there and I was like, I know a lot more than what these guys are doing. I'm not even kidding. So maybe I should set up my own course, I don't know. But yeah, it's literally, honestly, it's just, I call it playing with Excel. I'm not kidding. I love just working with Excel and just seeing all the different ways you can.
How many Excel lovers out there?
Yay! Like one
so that's all the PPC
house.
people in the room.
Nice.
If you're an SEO, put your hand up in the room. If you're a PPC person, put your hand up in the room. You see, they're all getting shy now. We just thought about Excel, and I was going to be a there was a correlation between Excel and PPC, or whether it was the SEO guy. Because you actually mentioned some really handy tips for SEO tools as well.
Great.
Okay, massive thank you to Anu. Let's give Anu a massive benchmark. Thank you.